Hello everyone, we're going to be starting to review Chapter 2, Firefighter Safety. Part of this chapter is going to talk to you guys about everything we can do to improve the safety of ourselves, our fellow firefighters, and essentially protect everybody involved with our patients as well. Each year we proudly proclaim that we're one of the most dangerous professions, yet there's a lot of times we're not taking care of ourselves, we're not protecting ourselves. Um, Many injuries are due to carelessness and failure to follow our standards that departments put in place, such as driving safety, protective clothing, physical fitness, training. We have a responsibility to protect ourselves. Okay, if we're not protecting ourselves, we can't protect the public. You can see just in a couple of these pictures, the guy on the left falling off the roof or maybe falling through the roof. His helmet's flinging down the roof. Didn't have it secured. Maybe that's an issue. Doesn't look like he has a Nomex on over his mask either. Right? That's another issue. We get guys on the right side that are fighting a fire with no gear on at all. I've seen smoke explosions come out of buildings like this, and without respiratory protection or anything, that can be a big problem for these guys if something were to happen. Here's in 2012, there's 101 firefighter deaths occurred in the U.S. Here's the breakdown of them. Responding to and returning from alarms, 18%. That is unacceptable. We're just driving. We need to have better care on driving to and back from calls. 58% was on fire grounds. We should never have any deaths occur in training. I know accidents happen, but that we need to do everything we can to reduce these numbers. 69,400 injuries occurred. Okay, um, there's a number of reasons why injuries occur. It can be all the way down to inattentiveness, failure of equipment, and the list goes on and on. We have to deal with intense heat. Okay, it's one of the major dangers to us. It can cause obviously injuries and death, thermal stress, burned respiratory tract, um, and guys, the heat will build up quicker than what you think, and it can overcome you very quickly. There's toxic gases, guys. Smoke. What is it? It's unburned fuel. It's carbon monoxide, hydrogen chloride, hydrogen cyanide, hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide. All these gases that we don't want to be breathing into our bodies. This guy here, got a big mouthful of it because he's not wearing an SCBA. I can't tell what's going on. It almost looks like he's using his helmet to break out the windows. Okay, again, another unsafe technique. We're going to talk about, dense smoke. What does it do? It limits the visibility, excludes oxygen, and hampers rescue efforts. Okay, everybody's seen or gone into a fire, I'm sure, at some point, whether it be a training fire or real life fire. The smoke hampers our ability to do what we need to do. We also need to take in consideration building collapses. Large volumes of water poured onto a structure can cause dangerous runoffs and collapses. You got to think about a 2-3 story building. If we got a fire on the third floor, you're putting thousands of gallons of water a minute into that third floor. Uh, that's going to add a lot of weight to that structure. What, 8.2 pounds or something per gallon of water? That adds up. That adds up a lot, and it can potentiate collapses quicker than what um, would normally happen just due to the fire. But we have to be looking for signs of collapse as well. Trusses and beams burned through, mortar joints cracked, loosened, supports for overhangs, fallen, sagging floors, spongy soft floors, burned out trusses, walls bowing outward like the first picture up top, loud groans and noises from structures, cracking, popping. All those things are bad signs when you're in a building, and it just sounds like the building is living and walking away. Uh, you need to be considering getting out if you're inside, because those are not good indicators. Unfortunately, the job we do leaves us with traumatic injuries. Some of them are less traumatic than others, but sprains, strains are the most common. Wounds, cuts, bruises, dislocations, shock, any type of eye injuries. Guys, you have one set of eyes. You ruin one of those, that's going to be tough to overcome. And stress. We got physical stress, overexertion. We got emotional stress and overexertion. Um, but we all deal with environmental stressors constantly. It seems like we've always got severe weather. It's always cold, snowy, rainy, or it's always hot, dry, humid. So we're always dealing with these here, especially in Missouri. We've got a lot of noises to overcome. Okay, we've got fans going, we've got extrication equipment going. So again, hearing protection is important when we're doing some of these things. Cardiovascular disease, most frequent cause for firefighter deaths, believe it or not. We're exposed to smoke, chemicals, heat, stress, psychological things all the time. Your acute or immediate effects only last a few days, but your chronic is long lasting. Breathing in smoke, all these carcinogens, um, can have a cumulative effect and be fatal or severely diminish your quality of life. Some of the health hazards associated with firefighting is asthma, lung cancer, COPD, and it's just essentially caused by exposure to gases and chemicals over a long period of time. Um, Guys, we're more prone to testicular cancer and prostate cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and multiple myeloma. Um, it's just the way it goes. It's because they associate the smoke and things that we deal with on a daily basis sometimes, to contribute to these cancers. New studies coming out by multiple agencies are showing that we are becoming more and more overweight and obese, just like the general public is. And it's not acceptable, but I understand how it gets to be that way. I'm not the most physically fit person, but we all need to try to improve our health and eating habits. They're saying here 73 to 88% of firefighters are overweight. Okay, things we can do is exercise and eat a healthy diet. Cut back on the sodas and the sweets and the snacks when we're sitting around the firehouse, bored out of our minds because we're not running any calls. But obesity, it leads to type 2 diabetes, coronary heart disease, hypertension, and some forms of cancer, although everything forms cancer now. Emotional, psychological stress, hypertension, physical illness, substance abuse. Because we gotta be aware of these signs of stress, not only in ourselves but our other firefighters as well. You should know your friends, your firefighters that are within your department. And you know how they act. Some are crabbier than others. Some are always nicer than others. Some always joke. Some always serious. But you get to learn those guys, and so you should be able to tell when they're having memory problems, poor judgment, physical pain, inability to sleep, or excessiveness, depression, nervous habits. I mean, these are all signs that we can recognize in ourselves, but we should be able to recognize in others. What causes it? It's just a 7 alarm constantly going off. Interruption of meals and sleep. Need for speed. When on called upon, you need to get there and get it done quick. Poor work relationships may develop because of it, and just ultimately poor work atmosphere. So the things to do to cope with stress is be positive. Don't dwell on the negatives. You can review, come back to the firehouse and look over a call or review a call. Think of things that you could have maybe done better. That's always productive, but don't dwell on it. Once you make a decision and you've gone forward with a task, operational task, and the outcome either was excellent or maybe wasn't as good as what you anticipated, be positive about it and take it as a learning opportunity. Move on. Don't dwell on it. You know, we're not always going to make the right decisions all the time, and that's part of being human. But we can talk to with trusted friends about the issues. Take breaks. Have an outlet. Okay. Take care of yourself and your health. So all these things that will help cope and reduce the stress. Learn some relaxing techniques. Okay. When injuries or deaths occur, regulations are established to reduce future risk. That's why they say there's always a policy written for somebody. But we got to remember, we need to take care of ourselves because we're number one priority. If you look at the picture off to the left, you got a guy in full PPE, and then you got somebody else that's trying to help. Great, he's got a great heart and wants to do things right, but he doesn't have any equipment to be doing what he's doing. We got a fire truck overturned on the left bottom. For what? What happened there? Were they driving too fast for the situation, the road conditions, distraction? Who knows? But we need to reduce our risks. NFPA 1500 specifies the minimum requirements for Department of Safety and Health program. Everybody should have some type of health and safety policies, procedures in place. But essentially what it does is it requires departments to develop organization plan, risk management, safety and health policy, have some type of health committee, designate health and safety officers. Some of the NFPA 1500 topics are going to include training and education. We have to or should accomplish a certain amount of training. The apparatus needs to meet the appropriate NFPA standards as well, and that goes all the way from design and function to seatbelt management and everything associated with it. All personnel riding in an apparatus must be seated and securely belted whenever the vehicle is in motion. This is a huge thing that we are sitting down and buckling up while we're driving on these apparatus. All personnel must be provided with protective clothing and equipment appropriate for hazards. Again, we got this guy in a pair of shorts and a t-shirt with his walking cane off his belt, trying to raise the hood of a vehicle that looks like it's been burnt and extinguished by a hose line. We also, in the NFPA 1500, they talk about emergency operations. We need to establish an incident management system, accountability system, rapid intervention team, and post-incident analysis. When we come back and we talk about what happened, and what we could have did better, or what went wrong, right. They include departments' facilities, life safety codes, must be smoke-free environments, requires us to have medical evaluations for firefighter candidates, and then annually every year after, we should evaluate each firefighter. And we need to establish an infection control program. If something happens, Um, you get stuck with a needle because you're helping a medic on a call. It's a dirty needle. We need to know what to do to manage that. We need to train everybody on what to look for infectious control. What to avoid doing, I should say. We need to establish, every department should have some type of assistance program for substance abuse, stress, or problems, you know, because our jobs, unfortunately, can be stressful at times, and sometimes we need professional help, but not just the help of our fellow firefighters to talk through things. Firefighters' responsibilities: comply and participate in department occupational safety and health programs, be trained adequately, and ride in the apparatus and wear their seat belts and personal protective equipment. Self-contained breathing apparatus, whenever you're in an IDLH atmosphere or hazardous environment, should be worn. Work in teams of 2 or more. I always say work in teams of 2 or more, but I also understand at times with volunteer departments in some of the areas around here, we just can't do that because of lack of resources. But we also have to remember, don't do anything that's completely unsafe either. We talk about OSHA a little bit, and they apply to federal employees who fight fires, private sector employees, and incorporated volunteer fire protection associations. They do not cover employees of state and local governments unless the state operates as a OSHA-approved state. One of the things, though, is some of the departments may be held to OSHA standards in a civil court just because it's a standard of care, standard of practice. NIOSH is big too and performs research to support OSHA activities, tests and improves SCBAs. Anytime there's a firefighter death, NIOSH comes through and reviews everything. They'll pull reports all the way from training, all the way down to the firefighters' medical records to see, were they well trained? Did they have was there medical problems that we knew about? Was there policy procedure problems where they weren't following policies, procedures? Have they been written up for insubordination? All these type of things. They're going to look at, was his equipment maintained? How often did you check those air packs? Did you do a weekly test on them, daily test on them, monthly test, function test? All these things will be questioned about any firefighter death. Then we have the Superfund amendments, the reauthorization of SARA Act, requires both the community and employees' right to know concerning hazardous materials. This year they've added everyone goes home section into this PowerPoint presentation, in which the U.S. Fire Administration National Fallen Firefighters Foundation established 16 life safety initiatives that ensure that everyone goes home. These are great initiatives. Some of them are common sense, some of them are a little more in depth, but we all need to know. We need to do whatever it takes to get home to our families. One, define and advocate the need for cultural change within fire service relating to safety, incorporating leadership, management, supervision. Culture change has to begin in formal leaders and managers. We have to, as leaders throughout our own departments, we have to think about, being that aggressive department that says, well, we're inside spraying water on the outside. You're not fighting fire if you're not inside. The water's spraying the guys outside. That's a cultural change, which, if that building is a complete loss or it's an abandoned building that's going to get torn down anyway, is there need to put those firefighters in that danger of being inside? Okay, that's where the culture change needs to come. Enhance the personal and organizational accountability for health and safety throughout the fire service. Each firefighter, we need to promote our own safety, our own health, our own wellness. and we need to follow our SOPs at all times. Utilize the incident command system. Ensure everyone understands the difference between acceptable risk and unacceptable risk. When I talk about acceptable risk, is there a salvageable person inside that structure if we're going in for a rescue during a structure fire? Is there a chance that somebody's alive in there and will have a salvageable life afterwards? Or is there smoke banked all the way down where we're flashover conditions and there's no way anybody's going to survive those conditions, smoke related or the fire relation to it? We're going to risk a lot to save a lot. We're going to risk a little to save a little. Okay, a lot of departments are starting to implement policies, procedures about a turn down assignment, or um, allowing firefighters to stop unsafe practices. You know, there's times that we might say, hey, we're going to go in and we're going to fight this fire this way, but everybody's going to understand that because somebody makes a decision to do that, it's not always the safest or the best way to do it. So, as a team, everybody needs to be looking out for all the safety concerns involved. If you start to go inside and you say, wow, this floor's spongy, or it doesn't look right, don't go in. Let's find a different way to do this. And that's completely acceptable, because you're the one inside, you're the one getting ready to do the tasks that need to be done to accomplish the goals, but yet you're the ones inside. You're the ones hearing the creaking and the popping of the house. You're feeling the floors of the sponginess, or you're feeling the heat intensify below your knees. Whatever the case might be, the command staff outside, they have no correlation of what's going on while you're inside. So you should have the ability to stop those activities that present imminent harm and turn back and get out, or come up with a new solution. And you will never be criticized for that. Um, a lot of you guys are probably in this class and you think, wow, why do I have to have firefighter 1 and 2, hazmat awareness and ops, to be hired on a different department? Or why do I have to have driver operator to drive an apparatus? Or why do I have to be an investigator, certified investigator, to investigate a fire? It's just because we're trying to establish national standards that encourage departments to operate at a higher level of effectiveness. Having those certifications, showing that you have the ability to learn, and proving that you have that knowledge um, comes into play whenever something goes wrong. Somebody goes into a fire and there's a missing girl, and you go in, you do a search, you miss the child. Um, it comes out that they died because maybe we didn't see them, maybe they hid from us, maybe they moved while we were inside trying to get out. There's so many variables, but what's going to happen when the insurance company comes after you, or the lawyers come after and say, well, what training do you have? What certifications do you have that you're have the ability to do this job? And if you don't have anything, it's kind of hard to back up what you have, what your capabilities are. Having those certifications will help alleviate some of that. Uh, One of the biggest things a lot of departments are trying to push towards is implementation of a national medical physical fitness standards, showing that each firefighter has some type of physical or annual test per year to ensure that they're physically fit and able to do the job, um, and establish some type of well-being or wellness program within the department. Um, National research agenda and data collection systems that relate to initiatives This is just whenever we write our reports at the end of the day. Um, some of this information is going back to the state and FEMA levels to look at what call data is there and what's happening in some of these calls. One of the biggest things that we've got to continue to work for or towards is technological solutions. Okay, new technology is coming out there, and it's enhancing our jobs. I can tell you one of the things that we were doing in Herculaneum is we went to emergency reporting systems in which we can log on as long as we have internet access. We can pull up our contact information for any business inside the city. We can pull up blueprints and building plans, site plans for any structure we have, and have that capability to us at all times. We're going to thoroughly investigate all firefighter fatalities, injuries, and near misses. We're going to come up with a reason why these things happen, what failed, what came about to lead to a firefighter death or accident or injury. In these near miss reports, you can go to Everyone Goes Home. You can read some of these near miss reports, and guys, I can tell you it's some things that we've all probably done. Or you don't realize it. I know I've looked out from the side of a truck on the highway before and realized, holy crap, that was close. I almost just got smoked by a tractor trailer or whatever the case is. We've all kind of done this. So some of these near miss reports are pretty amazing. A grant program support implementation of safe practices or mandate the safe practices of eligibility requirements. Okay, some of these grants are tied to safety initiatives. How's it going to help you respond, provide your guys better safety items, better health and wellness? We need to adopt safe driving rules and policies, procedures. National protocols for response to violent incidents should be developed and championed. Um, Stage on violent incident scenes. Don't go in and be the hero and get shot yourself or whatever the case is. Um, we need to look at, should we go in or should we wait until law enforcement can get there to secure a scene. Terrorist incidents we gotta look at. September 11th, would we have done things differently? And we need to make sure that we have some type of counseling or psychological support for some of these issues. Um, Unfortunately, firefighting is a high-risk occupation, and it can put firefighters and families under extreme stress. You're leaving during dinner time. You're leaving for a sporting event. You're leaving for this, or you're going for that. You're not sleeping because you're getting calls in the middle of the night. Um, it can be tough, but you gotta remember, if you're feeling stressed, you need help from physicians, counselors, religious leaders, or other sources that you can find. Utilize those sources. And we're trying to educate the public more and more, um, because if we can educate the public on what not to do, that should increase or decrease the amount of fires we have, the accidents that we have to respond to. If we can increase the civil awareness and decrease firefighter risk, that's going to benefit all of us in the long run. So that's why public education is so important, and why everybody's pushing on public education so much. And getting more and more homes installed with sprinkler systems. You guys I'm sure a lot of you guys have been to the Jeffco Fire Engine Rally the last couple of years. excluding this year, they always had a live fire burn where you would see the trailer that had a sprinklered room and an unsprinklered room next to it, and you could see the sprinklered room pretty much would always stay completely intact, minus a small little trash can fire would get put out. Um, the other room would be fully involved in a matter of minutes, and there's no chance of survival out of that, or I shouldn't say survival, but you're not going to save anything, and we're going into these buildings that have weaker and weaker components, such as the engineered trusses. Safety is a primary consideration in design of apparatus and equipment. We need to make sure that everything we're buying is approved up to National Fire Protection Association's standard of care and levels of testing. NFPA 1500 requires a risk management plan to make tactical decisions based off assessing the benefits and gains compared to the risk involved. Again, risk a lot to save a lot, risk a little to save a little. Okay. Here's Phoenix Fire Department's risk management plan. It's pretty simple. We will begin our response on the assumption that we can protect lives and safety, or lives and property. We will risk our lives a lot necessary to protect a salvageable life. We will risk our lives a little and in a calculated manner to protect salvageable property. We will not risk our lives at all to protect lives and properties that are already lost. Pretty straightforward, right? Key behaviors, guys. A lot of this stuff is pretty common sense. Snake, drive defensively. Drive slower than faster. If you can't get there, you're not going to do anybody any good. If you can't see the intersections, the drivers need to stop and proceed on, very carefully. Don't run from a moving vehicle. Don't jump off of a moving vehicle. Always wear your seat belts, full PPE, turnout gear, SCBA. Attack with a sensible level of aggressiveness. If it's a small incipient fire and you can get in real quick and knock it out, go for that. If it's a raging inferno in there, maybe we need to spray some water from the outside, cool the atmosphere, knock that fire down and go in so we can see a little bit better. Always have structure to your response. Don't just freelance and go off and do whatever you think is what needs to be done. Make sure that you have an officer telling you what to do as soon as you get off that truck. Stay together. Keep the crews intact. Make sure you always have communications. And never breathe smoke. Okay, wear those SCBAs. Have an escape route. Have a secondary escape route. Know the windows. Where can you bail out if you need to. Never go beyond your air supply. Evaluate the hazards. Vent early and vent often. Provide lights in the work area. Providing light reduces trip hazards. Helps you find a way out. If you're in a dark building and you see a light or a big glow, that's the way to go. If it's too heavy, get help. Help somebody carry a fan up the stairs. Don't kill yourself. Don't tear your back out, because you're gonna have problems down the road if you don't take care of your body. Make sure we're rotating fatigue companies in and out. Okay, that's why we need our rehab area set up. Pay attention all the time. It's one of the biggest things. Pay attention to everything. Don't just pay attention to your job at task. That's important, but you need to be looking out for other things too. Okay. The International Association of Fire Chiefs 10 Rules of Engagement for Structure Firefighting. Acceptability risk. No building or property is worth the life of a firefighter. All interior firefighting involves inherent risks. Some risks are acceptable and some are not. All feasible measures shall be taken to limit and avoid risk of assessment. Um, each incident commander should evaluate the level of risk. Okay? At no point in time is the incident commander the only one that's going to evaluate the level of risk, but he's going to be the primary one that does it. After that, you need to be making sure that you're looking at um, the level of risk and saying, "Wow, I don't think this is a good idea," or "Hey, I agree with this. We should be able to go in here and knock this out real quick." Protecting one's own life and safety of their fellow firefighters is a huge priority. You gotta remember, if you get hurt yourself, what good are you gonna be doing to helping others? And not to mention that any of the fellow firefighters that are on the scene are gonna be helping you now, and they're not gonna be taking care of the other patients, the fire itself, or whatever the case might be, or whatever you're responding to. Each department should establish a firefighter safety and health program to prevent injuries and death, illness, and exposure to hazardous atmospheres and contagious diseases, prevent equipment damage, and reduce accidents and exposures. It's a physically demanding job. Flexibility is necessary. So, Pilates and all these different types of stretching um, things is important to try to do, and to keep ourselves physically fit and flexible. We got to stay informed about job-related health issues. Wear PPE, clean the PPE, be vaccinated up to every standard there can be, and we need to prevent exposure to pathogens. Clean your equipment, wipe it down, spray it down with disinfectants. We got to remember to use proper lifting techniques, clean and disinfect equipment, maintain regular exercises, maintain a diet that is low in cholesterol and fats, eliminate tobacco use, just have regular physical checkups. Employee assistance program can help departments personnel with their families with substance abuse, personal problems, stress, depression, anxiety, financial problems. They're there to talk you through whatever you're going through, and most everybody's going to have something in place for these. A wellness program can help with health-related problems, nutrition, hypertension, tobacco use, weight control, physical conditioning. And sometimes referral to these um, programs can be either voluntary or mandated by a supervisor. Supervisor sees that you're struggling with certain things. They may say, "Look, you're going to talk to so and so. It's a condition of your job employment." And a lot of times, critical incident stress um, is a natural occurrence from particularly traumatic or disturbing incidents, multiple casualties, extraordinary traumatic injuries, firefighter death on scene, children being injured or killed. These all can affect us and will probably affect us in one way or another. And sometimes people have a better coping mechanism to deal with these than others. Some really have trouble, some don't. But I guarantee you, everybody's going to need to just talk about things to reduce the fact that you hold that in and bottles up and doesn't get released. The effects of unresolved stress can increase and may fester and stir um, long after the incident. If it's not dealt with, it can really cause problems in a family life, home life. It can lead to gambling, addictions, alcohol abuse, substance abuse, so on. So we need to make sure we deal with these things. On-scene effects, denial of the situation, anger, doubts of performance, frustration, Did I do everything I should have? You know, the feelings of guilt, irritability, insomnia, and sleep disturbances. Qualified individuals are going to conduct a full debriefing session within 72 hours of a traumatic incident. Like I said, if left untreated, it can lead to more serious conditions as post-traumatic stress disorder. As almost 30% of all firefighter injuries occur on apparatus. This is one of our biggest things, just getting to and back from calls. Um, different causes is improper backing techniques, not having spotters out there watching what we're doing, excessive speeds, lack of driving skill and experience, reckless driving by the public. They're just as bad as anybody else of not paying attention, and poor maintenance. Brakes are not working because we didn't maintain them, we didn't have them set right, or they're not much brake pads left. As a driver, as you guys get into driving an apparatus, you got to be aware that you're essentially responsible for those guys on that truck and everybody you're driving around, and you got to be aware of those potential hazards around you. Drive with due care. Slower means safer. Don't drive so slow that people are passing you and looking at you like you're crazy because you're running lights and sirens, but you're only doing 20 miles an hour down the highway. But, you know, doing 80 miles an hour down a highway in a 52,000-pound truck is not probably the best idea either. Always stop at intersections with negative right-of-way. Clear that intersection before you move on. Park away from hazardous areas. If you're going to park on a roadway, make sure you park it so that it can be seen by oncoming traffic. Make sure your warning lights are on and functioning. If you got arrow sticks, make sure they're directing traffic where they need to go. Always use parking brake. Always use your wheel chocks. Don't move that vehicle until everybody's seated and seat belted for your safety and their safety. Use those spotters when you're backing up. Never drive an emergency or any other vehicle under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Because everybody at some point, you know, may go to the doctor and get put on some muscle relaxers because you're having, you know, back spasms or whatever the case might be or you had some dental work where you're on some pain medicine. If you're on something like that, don't drive. You can't be driving the vehicles because they will alter your ability to react and effectively drive that apparatus. When you're responding, you got to look at response times and days. There's times that we might need to drive an extra, you know, half a mile to get to a scene, but if that's making it a safer response, so be it, even if it adds 20, 30 seconds. If we can avoid school zones and playgrounds, try to do that. Try to not ever drive against the flow of traffic. I mean, that's crazy. You're driving into people's lanes of traffic that they're not expecting a fire truck to be driving down. Whenever you're following another vehicle, drive at least 30 or 300, 500 feet apart. That way, when one clears an intersection, people are hopefully looking for another one and don't just pull out. They've got time to react to another vehicle coming through. Apparatus safety. This is going to be one of your guys' skills, but don all protective gear first. Use handrails. Have 3 points of contact. So you need to have 2 feet in one hand or 2 hands in 1 foot on that apparatus while you're mounting or dismounting an apparatus. Never run for the moving vehicle. Never ride on the tailboards of moving vehicles. Seat belts and safety bars must be used at all times when in motion. Again, never dismount a moving vehicle. Wait for a complete stop before unbuckling. Wait for orders before dismounting. Don't get off the truck or run to the fire scene without having some type of orders from your captain or your lead guy on that truck. And of course, always use caution. Firefighters or fire station hazard endanger firefighters and visitors as well. So we need to make sure we're keeping our bay floors clean and picked up. No drip hazards. Should be identified and corrected before an accident occurs. If you find something laying around on the floor, you need to pick it up. Okay? Sprains, strains, most common injury, as we've already said once in this PowerPoint. Use proper lifting techniques. You lift with your knees, not your back. Equipment may be damaged if you're not carrying it quick or correctly. I mean, you may drop it because it's too heavy or bulky or awkward. You may be banging into walls while you're carrying it in. Okay? All heavy items should be lifted by bending the knees at the standing with those items. Keep it close to your body, core to the body. Second most common injuries is caused by slips and falls. Slippery surfaces, inattention to footing on surfaces. Housekeeping is just vital. You know, pick stuff up. You see stuff laying around, just pick it up. It's not that hard. Anytime you're working with tools, small hand tools, wear appropriate protective equipment. You know, these guys should have goggles on or masks, their face shields down. Some of them do, some of them don't. They're pulling ceilings, they're looking up. All that stuff's coming down into their eyes. Okay, but avoid losing clothing. Use the right tool for the right job. Go follow the manufacturer's instructions. Inspect those tools. Clean them after you're done. Okay. Um, Safety with power tools. Match the saw to the type of blade to the material that's going to be cut. Don't force it beyond its limits. Wear protective equipment. If it's a gas-powered motor, don't use it in a flammable area. Or if you're cutting metal like this and it's a flammable area, don't use it because you've got a flammable atmosphere. You got sparks. Something could ignite. Keep bystanders back and out of the way as much as possible. Follow those procedures of the manufacturer's recommendation. They built it. Whatever they say goes, probably. Allow your gas-powered equipment to cool down before you refuel. When it comes to down training, we need to make sure that we are taking every precaution that we could possibly take in order to minimize our hazards. A lot of our training is expanding our basic skills. We've got to remember the basics of safety and what we're trying to do. One of the things to look for, when we're doing training, it's training, yes, but we need to be looking for the guys, and we're not all healthy all the time. So physical discomfort and illness can make someone less alert and more prone to injury. So we need to be looking for that. If somebody's sick, like I am right now, I've got a cold. If I got put into an SCBA and go in the house, I'm going to utilize that bottle a whole lot faster than somebody that's not sick. Or if I'm in pain, I'm going to be limping. I'm going to be carrying stuff that's maybe too heavy for my injury. So we need to be taking all those things into consideration. Some people won't admit that they're unable to continue training. They'll just keep going because they feel like they're going to get made fun of for being a wuss or being sick or whatever the case might be. We all got to be watching out for each other, like I've said many times. Weather conditions during training. If it's too hot, too cold, we need to really consider, do we need to be doing these trainings right now? Okay. Horseplay during a training is never acceptable. There's so many things that can go wrong with some of the stuff that we use in the fire service. That we should not be horseplaying with this stuff. We need to make our trainings as close as possible to reality, but we also got to take extra precautions because we don't want to have anybody hurt or injured or die in a training exercise. These are man-made, or I guess situations that we should be able to control because we should have a good enough understanding of fire behavior that we should be able to manage these live fire exercises. Safety is more important during the live fire training than any other type of training. We follow NFPA 1403 standard live fire training evolutions. Site preparation has to be a priority to get the structure ready for live fire training. You're not going to exceed 5 to 1 on instructor to student ratio. Safety officer is always going to be an instructor in charge, must be appointed. Humans are never going to be utilized as victims. And PPE must be worn on all participants involved at all times. Everybody's going to have to make it through the first fire training, including fire behavior, PPE, firefighting tools, and tactic operations. These are all going to be done before you guys ever get into your Fire 1 and 2 live burns. Water supplies and separate water supplies are required for attack and backup lines. So you should be off of a couple different hydrants or at least 2 different trucks that have a water supply on board. Training plan is going to be prepared, briefing held with all involved. Flammable liquids will never be used inside a burning building, and ventilation to prevent flashover and backdraft are going to be required. So that all these components that we were looking at right now are going to be in place when we do our live fire burns. We got to be ready for everything. We got to be ready. Well, that's why our equipment needs to be ready for every situation. We got to remember never operate in any way that's going to make us part of the problem. Just like this guy with his shorts. He opens up this hood, fire comes out because it's not completely extinguished. Now he's a victim. This guy holding this hose in his shorts. Who knows? Wall collapses on him. Now he's a victim. There's so many variables here that can happen. First arriving officer is going to assume command at any incident scene. They're going to make sure life safety hazards are in place or that there are none. And the nature and extent of the emergency, arrangement and access, available resources, and any special hazards that they see. They're going to come up with an instant action plan and go from there. They're going to either make a decision of offensive or defensive attack. Offensive is centered around controlled, aggressive interior search and fire attack. Okay, they're going to go in, we're going to put the fire out. All personnel in the hazard zone is going to work within the instant action plan. Absolutely no freelancing is allowed because this is where people go missing, death can occur because we don't know we're missing somebody. They went in, told nobody what's going on. Firefighters inside the hazard zone must be within voice, vision, or physical contact with each other at all times. Defensive operations are basically going to be standing outside the hazard zone with boundaries in place, standing back from a collapse zone and keeping all personnel out of those boundaries. You can see this one right here. There's fire, from first floor through, looks like what, fourth floor, or the attic, however they consider that. Part of the walls are falling, bowing in. Good call on doing a defensive attack. When we're doing a defensive attack, firefighter safety is the utmost priority. We should never have anybody injured on a defensive fire attack. What things can we do to minimize our risk? Working within the incident action plan, assessing the situation, maintaining situational awareness. And when I talk about situational awareness, I mean that's not the task you're just assigned, but that is everything that goes on inside the structure, anything to do with any call you're on. Watching the weather, watching the traffic, watching the vehicle rescue, the helicopters coming in, knowing all those different things. That's just your situational awareness. Look at all those type of things. Wear your PPE, your appropriate PPE. I don't know how many times it's in these PowerPoints. Wear your appropriate PPE. Work as a team, follow those SOPs. Maintain communications. During a risk-benefit analysis for every action, continuously looking, is this the best thing that we can be doing right now? Using accountability system, having a rapid intervention crew ready to go if something were to happen. Rehab needs to be established on every scene. That's going to take more than a typical EMS call would. If we're going to be out there, hot weather, cold weather, we need to warm up, cool off. We need hydrations, food, whatever. We need to set up those rehab areas. Use emergency escape techniques, maintaining discipline, team integrity. Don't go past your training. Reduce the amount of people that's needed for the scene. If you can do it with 2-3 people, do it with 2 or 3 people. Don't have 15 standing there. Okay, you just reduce your overall amount of people that could be in danger. Roadway emergency scene precautions: reduce water supply, unknown contents, stability of vehicles. We never know what's going on, what's in these vehicles. You get a Walmart truck, they don't have to be placarded because they might have propane, they might have butane, lighter fluid, and all these different things on it, but as long as they don't carry a certain amount, they don't have to be placarded. Fire personnel must be trained on how to work next to vehicle traffic to minimize their vulnerabilities. Federal laws requiring firefighters and other emergency responders to start wearing life safety or safety vests or high visibility safety apparel. Firefighters working in the right of way of operations that directly expose them to flame, fire, heat, and other hazardous materials may wear retroreflective turnout gear. But if we're talking about dealing with vehicle accidents out on highway, something like that, we need to be wearing a performance class 1 or 2, or correction, class 2 or 3 American National Standards Institute or ANSI safety vest. Minimum requirements include use of fluorescent yellow, green, orange, red, or red background material with 360-degree reflective stripe. Some things we need to look for when we're exiting an apparatus. At roadway emergencies, look for approaching traffic before exiting. Before you just open up that door and jump off, look in the mirror or look out the side window, see if anybody's coming up behind you. Open the door partially and check again. Exit the vehicle when safe. Close the door. Maintain the low profile along the side of the vehicle. The primary apparatus should work at the scene and stage for the functional use. Okay, if we got to get up there and we can park wherever which way we need to park to utilize the tools off that truck the best way, we should be able to do that. The secondary apparatus should come in and provide the traffic control or the safety barrier for us. The goal is to slow down the speed of traffic but not stop the traffic on most of our roadway incidents. Angle the apparatus so that the front tapers in the desired direction of the transition that protects emergency workers from traffic. Blocks only those lanes occupied by the incident. Don't take 5 or 6 lanes if you only have, like the shoulder plus 1 lane. Position the apparatus to maximize the sight distance whenever hills or curves are in the area. Somebody drive around a curve and then boom, you're right there on an accident scene. That's not safe. We need to put that apparatus, maybe before the curve, or have a secondary apparatus come in and provide us some protection on a curve or at the crest of a hill. You always want to turn the steering wheel so that the vehicle will turn away from the incident responders as if it is struck. So if you hit a vehicle, you need to make sure it's going to go the opposite direction of where you're working. Traffic control zones, advanced warning area, used to warn and alert drivers that their normal driving pattern needs to be altered. We need to be putting out cones or something to warn them. Transition areas used by drivers to alter their normal driving pattern, such as changing lanes or stopping. And then buffer space is a short section between you and the transition area in which you're going to be working. Emergency work area is considered the immediate area where responders are operating. And it needs to be big enough to provide a safe working area and allow you to accomplish all the tasks that you need to accomplish. And then the termination areas where drivers can resume normal patterns. Deploy traffic cones upstream from a blocking vehicle, tapered at an angle from the vehicle's corner. So you can see they're blocking I guess this is a 2-lane road essentially, so they're blocking the 1 lane where the apparatus is parked, and they're putting cones out from the corner of that truck and tapering them in towards the weeds there on the right. NFPA 1500 also requires a reflective highway safety sign used as advance warning when a fire department vehicle is blocking mode with the word emergency scene ahead. Use of flaggers. They need to be used to face the traffic and stand on or near the roadway shoulder. Always have an escape route plan. Never stand directly in front of a stopped vehicle. And use both the paddle sign and a hand signal. Distance for flaggers. If the speed limit on your road is 35, they need to be about 130 feet before the incident scene. As you can see, 40, 170, 55 miles an hour to 335 feet. 65 or more, they need to be at least 485 feet out from that incident scene so that they're warning drivers as they approach the scene that they need to be slowing down. Control zones should be used for various types of emergencies as well. Perimeter control is important for our spectators, for firefighters, for staging of apparatus. You're going to have to take the weather into consideration, the topography of the ground, the land, where can you park apparatus, so on and so forth. But essentially the hot zone is an immediate hazard where the mitigation is taking place. Only essential emergency personnel should be allowed in that spot. That hot zone. Warm zone is immediately outside the hot zone for personnel directly supporting those in the hot zone. It could be personnel staging, just waiting to go in to the hot zone. Cold zone is directly outside the warm zone, assembly point for equipment, staging, command posts, command staff. The guys that's making the final decision, that's probably going to be where they're in the cold zone. And then we need to have an outer boundary or cold zone or crowd control line to keep the general public back behind that line, so they don't get in there and get hurt. Accountability is we need to make sure accountability is complete on every structure fire. Each department's going to have a different policy, different procedure. They're going to have different types of tags, but they need to have, a standard within that department at least. In case of collapse, flash over, backdraft, serious accident, we need to know who's inside. The incident management system will help account for personnel. Command must know at all times who's working in the hazards and where they're at. Firefighters have died in situations where we didn't know that somebody's missing because we had no idea anybody was inside because they were freelancing. Okay. There's passports or tag systems. Each firefighter is issued a personal identification tag. They're left in a designated location or on a control board or some type of identification chart. When leaving the fire ground, they pick up their tag at the end. There's newer SCBAs that have the tag system built into them. They can provide more accountability for those within the hazard zone. Their entry times are recorded. Their expected time of exit is also recorded based on lowest SCBA pressure and ratings. Electronic tag systems. Each one of them's issued their own tag, electronically recorded information on it. When unseen, tags are touched in the control box, which electronically records accountability. We got to remember, interior firefighting operations are inherently dangerous and always require personnel to be alert and ensure safety precautions are taken at all times. Interior operations safety. We got to look over the building's exterior and locate windows and doors for escape routes before we ever go in. Somebody needs to know where our escape routes are. Again, we're full PPE, SCBA, work as a team. Take your tools in with you. You need to be taking tools in with you regardless. You got to be taking in at minimum an axe and a Halligan tool, so you can either force your way in or force your way out if you have to. And maintain communications. Give those incident staff reports to command staff or the operations guys. Always have a hose line available as a guide for safety. Pay attention to the immediate surroundings and identify safety threats. Know your procedures for Mayday. If you gotta call a Mayday, what are those procedures? And remember, you gotta watch your air supply. Never go beyond what your tank's gonna provide you to do. That's why it's good for in some training is just to put that air pack on and walk around the base for a while. Get down to your low air alarm, and then see how long you can make it last past that. So you, worst case scenario, you know what you got to get out. Know the plan, the incident action plan. Be part of it. Never freelance. Okay. Know your emergency escape operations. Involve breaking through doors, windows, walls if necessary. Okay, these could be things you can do just to escape a flashover explosion, collapse, or disoriented smoke-filled building, or when you're running out of air. You can get through walls inside a structure just by breaking out the drywall and crawling through some 2x4s. Take off your pack or shift your pack to one side. Crawl through. rapid intervention crews. Anytime the firefighters are working inside, we need to have a rapid intervention team or crew on the outside ready to go. They need to have tools available. Stokes basket, flashlights, saws, um, rip packs, all kinds of different tools so that whatever goes wrong, whatever happens inside, you're there ready to go get it with whatever tools, resources you need. The rule of 2 in, 2 out means 2 guys can be inside, but the minimum of 2 guys need to be outside for rescue if something happens, or be ready for when they come out. Those 2 can go in. RIT teams can be assigned some other duties as long as they can immediately abandon those assignments when needed for rescue. Firefighters have the responsibility and duty to protect themselves so they can protect the public. You got to remember, we're no good to anyone if we're part of the problem. You got to remember, we didn't start the fire, and you didn't put out the, you did not put the victims in that situation, and you're not obligated to sacrifice yourself to extinguish a fire, save a victim, especially not to recover a body.